Hey there, how's it going? Welcome back to U.S. History. It seems like it's been forever since we've had a video lecture, but today our lesson is mainly going to be reviewing over the Chapter 21 test, and then we will pick up on page 431 and start with Chapter 22. So let's go ahead and go over your Chapter 21 test here, and I want to show you, as we go over the answers, how you can review what you got right and what you got wrong after taking your test. Because I put in the test boost the day after you finish taking the test, and there are still people that are getting a lot of the answers wrong. And so the point of that test boost is for you to remember and figure out what you got wrong on the test and fix it on the test boost. So let's go ahead and look at this. Hopefully you would put true here. Let's see. All right, so during the 1920s, the United States practiced isolationism. That is true. Prohibition was easy to enforce. That is false. The Ku Klux Klan mixed racism with religious symbols and therefore is considered to be a false religion. I said in my lecture that it is indeed a false religion, so that is true. In your notes as well stated that. Warren Harding's administration was filled with controversy. That is true. In the 1920s, many Americans tried to keep and follow the traditional and cultural norms. That is false. They tried to break away. That's where we see the creation of flappers. Literature in the 1920s reflected man's hopelessness, despair, and desire for something more. That's true. One of the main goals of the American Communist Party was to create friction between workers and property-owning capitalists. That is true. After the war, factories began producing automobiles at a fast rate. That is true. The passing of the 17th Amendment created prohibition. That is false. That was the 18th Amendment. The NAACP challenged laws that violated the 14th and 15th Amendments. That is true. The NAACP wrote a journal called Not the Truth. It was called Crisis. So this would be false. Many claim the Scopes trial brought in about the end of creationism. That's true. Calvin Coolidge became president after Warren Harding. That's true. The decades of the 1920s was often called the Roaring Twenties. That is true. All right, so moving to multiple choice. Return to normalcy, that's Warren Harding. The rise of which political party caused the Red Scare? We did not talk about Democrats, Republicans, or Socialists. It said in your notes clearly that it was the Communist Party. Which mode of transportation made travel easy? That was automobile. Who made the first nonstop solo flight across the Atlantic? That's Charles Lindbergh. Who created the assembly line? That would be Henry Ford. According to your notes, which invention provided Americans with news and entertainment? That's the radio. What was the name given to women who began dressing in shorter skirts? That was flappers. What was the name given for the period of time when the manufacture and transport, sale, and consumption of alcohol was illegal? That is prohibition. What was the making and selling of illegal alcohol called? That was bootlegging. Who was the mob boss that organized bootlegging networks? That was Al Capone. What was the name given to illegal taverns? That was speakeasies. Who helped establish the NAACP according to your notes? That was W.E.B. Du Bois. Who was the psychologist that believed people should give in to their desires and inhibitions? That's Sigmund Freud. Who was the biology teacher from Tennessee that taught evolution? That's John Scopes. Who was the attorney that defended him? Clarence Darrow. Who was the prosecutor that sloppily defended creationism? That was William Jennings Bryan. Warren Harding died of a heart attack on a trip to Alaska. Calvin Coolidge was principled, worked hard to cut the national debt, and it was Herbert Hoover that had to deal with the Great Depression. Now, notice, whenever I click submit, you can click view score. And when you click on view score, you get to see what you got, and you also get to see every question that you answered, whether it was right or wrong. So this is basically whenever we're in class and I'm able to hand out the tests to you and we go over them, this is what you need to do. This is the exact same thing. You click on view score so you can see all this. So that's why on the test boost, whenever I see a lot of people getting questions wrong, I begin to wonder if you took time to look at this. So make sure that you click view score so that you can see what you got right and what you got wrong so that you don't make the same mistakes on the test boost, because I am giving you points on the tests. with this test boost. And if I think that students are just filling out answers and aren't trying to correct wrong answers, then I will only give half credit to those who get every question right on the test boost. It hasn't come to that just yet, but I am thinking about that if it continues that people are just getting the same questions wrong on the test boost. So that's chapter 21 test. Let's go ahead and pick up with your notes here. This is on page 431, The Great Depression, chapter 22. Now, Herbert Hoover, whenever he became president after Calvin Coolidge, a lot of people had high hopes. Prosperity was at an all-time high in the United States. In fact, in 1928, he supposedly said, "We in America today are nearer to the final triumph over poverty than ever before in the history of any land." So he even believed that America was as close as it had ever been to eliminating poverty. But boy, was he wrong. Now, on Thursday, October 24th, there was a record-breaking 13 million shares that were sold and exchanged. So we see that in the stock market where they buy and sell stocks, the prices of stocks began falling. And because they were falling, records amount of stocks are being sold quickly because they don't want to lose money whenever these stocks lose money. So people are trying to sell stocks at a record pace until finally on Tuesday, October 29th, 1929, the stock exchange was ordered to sell 16 million shares. And so basically what we see here is that the bottom of the stock market is falling out and stock prices are reaching an all-time low. People's life savings that they had in the stock market are now gone. Investors, no matter how hard they tried to save money, they were losing their clients' money. And I want you to understand how big of a deal this is. There were millions of Americans who had a lot of money invested in the stock market. And so understand that your money, how much you have, is tied to those stocks. And if the stocks do really well and sell for high prices, that means you're going to make more money. But if the stock prices drop, that means you're losing money. And so there was a record amount of money that was lost. People losing their retirement, people losing savings that they had built up over a long period of time. There were many people who sadly, because they couldn't handle this this loss of money and this infinite amount of stress that was put on their shoulders, many people committed suicide. There were a lot of investors who believed that they couldn't face their clients after losing millions of dollars. And so they jumped from their office building windows in New York City. It was a terrible time. But what I think that shows us, if we look at it from a spiritual perspective, is that we cannot place our value in how much money we have or how much money we don't have. We should never consider ending our lives over money, especially. We should never, first and foremost, consider ending our lives. But what we see here is that a lot of people, because they lost so much money, they felt like life was not worth living. And that's sad. And so hopefully we never get to that point, and that you can look into Scripture and see that your worth is tied in with Jesus Christ, not material things, not the things of this earth. Because money, the nicest house, the nicest cars, that's going to burn up in flames whenever this world comes to an end. It's what you store up for yourself in heaven that really matters. All right, so that's our spiritual perspective today. Let's move to the causes of the crash. So you need to know that Tuesday, October 29th, 1929, that was known as Black Tuesday. And it might not say that on the notes that I've uploaded onto Google Classroom, but you need to know that it was known as Black Tuesday. But some of the causes, and overuse of credit, there were many Americans who began buying things that they could not afford at the time on credit, meaning they were borrowing money to buy things that they wanted. But the thing is, they were using so much credit that their payments became extremely high, and they were having to pay a lot of money each month to pay off their credit. And once their credit became too high, the monthly payments, they weren't able to buy new things. And that means that automobile factories suffered because people weren't buying new cars. You see a lot of textile factories start to lose money because people aren't buying new clothes. And so a lot of businesses were affected by Americans just buying so much on credit and then not being able to pay off their debt. And then that's whenever it came to the point where many Americans declared bankruptcy, or they said they could not pay their monthly payments, meaning that the banks who had loaned them all of that money now lose money because these people who were borrowing credit, they weren't able to pay the banks back. So that was a terrible issue. Then you have speculation. Speculation can be property or stocks that people buy at a low price in hopes of selling them later at a higher price. And so when people are speculating on stocks, especially during October 29th, or even before then, you see that they were speculating that these stocks were going to rise in prices, but instead they dropped. So a lot of people were losing money over that, or they were wanting to buy property, build a house on it, or flip a house and then sell it for more. We see a lot of that today. Fixer-upper is one of those where people buy properties, fix it up, and then sell it at a higher price. But that is speculation. And then you have international economic problems. So if you remember in the Treaty of Versailles, Germany had to pay reparations to the rest of Europe. And so they didn't have a whole lot of money. And so the United States actually loaned them money to help build back the country of Germany, to build it back up. But instead, Germany used it to pay their debt to Europe. And now, whenever America realizes we need to borrow money from other countries, Germany can't pay off their debt to us. And other European countries can't pay off their debts to us because they don't have much money. They were affected by the crash as well. So those are causes of the crash. We're going to pick up with conditions during the Depression next week. So there is no class or any assignments on Friday, nor will there be any class or assignments on Monday. I hope that you have a happy Easter. On Thursday, you do have a reading assessment, but that'll be your last assignment or even lecture until next Tuesday. I hope you have a great rest of the week. Happy Easter. Remember that He is risen. I hope everyone is doing well, praying for you and your families to stay safe and healthy. Miss you guys. See you later.